Oh, afraid I'm gonna fall off here.
Go whenever you're ready.
Alright.
It's rolling.
It's rolling?
Yep.
Oh yes. Now the fun begins.
Hello, and welcome to the WDRA Evening News, where we go everything that's happening today in the good old US of A. I'm Walter Jennings.
1890s were considered the Gilded Age. It was named that because things that are gilded are usually shiny on the outside, but after further investigation, they're not exactly what they appear to be.
The U.S. Census Bureau today unveiled a new way for undertaking the ever-painstaking census. The last census, taken in 1880, took over 7 years to complete. They hope that this new method will help to quicken things up. Due to immigration, the population of the United States has gone up immensely during this age. The census was estimated to take about 13 years to complete, which is ridiculous, of course, because you can't cancel the census, that's unconstitutional, and you can't have it take 13 years, because that's just impractical. So, what happened was, a man by the name of Herman Hollerith came around, and being inspired by some of the ticket machines he had seen while working on the railroad, he designed this machine that was to count the census using punch cards, and it worked quite well. Instead of taking 13 years, it took a little under 13 months to complete it. 2 new states are being added to the Union. Idaho, which was added on July 3rd, and Wyoming, which was added on July 10th. A new invention of death, the electric chair, was given its first victim today. William Kemmler, who murdered his wife with a hatchet, was put to rest today at Auburn Prison in New York in what its creators claim is a safe and humane form of execution.
December 29th, 1890, about 200 Sioux, they were unarmed and they were attacked and slaughtered by about 500 of the 7th Cavalry. After that, they were just piled up in mass graves and just left to freeze. The lack of respect from the people that killed them, it's just despicable.
The International Copyright Law, which guarantees protection to foreign authors, was passed today, March 3rd, and will go into effect in early July. Speaking of foreign publications, a new tally has indicated that there are now over 100 newspapers currently being circulated in German. The 1800s saw a huge explosion in immigration. Between the age of the Civil War and World War I, we saw about 25 million immigrants enter the country. It really started to spice up the city life. I mean, Americans were exposed to new clothes, traditions, languages. That's why they call it the melting pot.
And the immigrants, they were subject to horrible racism. For example, the test to come into the U.S., what they had to do is they had to pass a test in their own language. They had to read and write. The only thing is, some countries like Italy were so poor that they couldn't even educate their own people. So those people that were immigrating from there couldn't even come in because they couldn't pass the test.
Eventually what happened was the immigrant children mixed with each other. A German say would marry an Italian, or something like that. And of course they learned English and adopted the American traditions, and, well, that really changed our country. For the better, of course.
The Wrigley Chewing Gum Company of Chicago, Illinois is one of the many new companies that we have seen popping up lately. Speaking of openings, New York now has a new music hall, which saw its first performance today, conducted by Russian composer Peter Tchaikovsky. If there was one good thing about the 1890s, besides, of course, the Columbian expedition, it would be all the wonderful toys that Thomas Edison gave us. One in particular being the kinetoscope, which was the precursor to the modern-day movie projector. Basically what it was this big box, and inside of it there would be film wrapped around all over the place. And what someone would do is they would look through a hole, and the film would roll, and it would give the illusion of movement, much like projectors nowadays do, but far more primitive, of course. And these were immensely popular, with parlors popping up all over the place and people coming from miles around to see the amazing moving pictures. The election votes have been counted, and our new president is an old one. Benjamin Harrison is out, and Grover Cleveland has taken back the seat. This is his second non-consecutive term. Grover Cleveland had already served as president before Benjamin Harrison, so by being re-elected that made him not only our 42nd president, but our 44th as well. Some economic news. The Thomas Houston Company and Edison General Electric have combined to become the General Electric Company. Andrew Carnegie has combined all his steel companies to create a monopoly in the steel industry. A man by the name of David Abercrombie has started a sporting appeal store in which... this just in. Murder in a small town of Fall River, Massachusetts. It seems that 2 members of the Borden family were found dead in their residence due to wounds from an axe. The bodies were discovered by the couple's daughter, Lizzie Borden, who is now a suspect in the murder case. The World's Columbian Expedition, otherwise simply known as the Chicago World's Fair, was started on October 21st, 1892, and ended on October 30th, 1893. This was considered one of the better World's Fairs. Now, many wonder why it was called the Columbian Expedition, as opposed to just the Chicago's World's Fair. Well, this is because it was to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America, hence the replicas of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria that were floating around in the harbor out there. Besides some of the amazing architecture, this fair is probably most memorable for George Ferris's invention, the Ferris wheel. This was the first of its kind. It was over 250 feet tall and took about 20 minutes to make a complete trip around. Another famous thing about this fair was the White City, as it was called. Not simply because the buildings were white, I mean, that might have had something to do with it, but mainly because at night the lights would come on and the entire portion would be illuminated, you know, with glowing white. And at that time, that was something that was really never seen before and quite spectacular. Depression. That's what happened in 1893. The Panic of 1893. It was started because the government was spending too much money on its railroads. It sent all the banks into the dumps. Worst thing to happen to the country thus far. In fact, some say that it was worse than the Great Depression itself. It's really why we saw so many strikes and such later on.